maybe I've been reading the same books since I was 12, but it's called consistency. Hello, my name is Elise, and by the time this video is uploaded, it will be my 20th birthday. Again, I will be 20, or am 20 by the time this is posted, but 20 on October 20th of 2020. So just to keep with the theme here, this video is going to be my 20 favorite books of all time. Take the word all time, or I guess that's 2 words, take those words with a grain of salt, because when I was deciding on books to put in this video, I chose books that I vividly remember enjoying. So I did not include my favorite Dora book from when I was 3 years old. These are more books that I just remember actively engaging in and really enjoying, and just that feeling of loving a book. Also, just another note, by favorite books, I do mean favorite in the sense that I emotionally enjoyed them. So all of these on this list might not necessarily be the most creative, well-written books out there. I will be the first to admit that, but they did have some kind of impact on me, perhaps just the themes that they were discussing in that book, or just the time I read that in my life. But overall, again, these are books that I would say are my favorites. Oh yeah, one last thing that would probably be important to mention. These books aren't ranked in a certain way. I'm mentioning them in the order that I thought of them, but this doesn't represent any kind of hierarchy. I don't have a list of which ones I like more than the others. These are just 20 books altogether that I really love. I think book number 1 is not going to be a big surprise. It is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. I've mentioned this book quite a few times on this channel, on Twitter, maybe Instagram, I don't know, but I love this book. I've read it at least 3 times now. I have post-its galore in it, and it's definitely a book that I always recommend. It's the kind of book where the writing is not very realistic. It's definitely more poetic, but I think it really works with the themes in here of sexuality and coming of age and friendship and just discovering one's identity. Seriously, I think this is one of my favorite books on this list. They're all favorites of mine, but if I was gonna choose one that is my all-time favorite out of all of these, it would definitely be this one. The second book on this list is Just Mercy, A Story of Justice and Redemption. I had to read this book for junior year of high school, and I ended up being so inspired by it that it shaped what I decided to study in college, which is sociology and psychology, with all these emphasis on the criminal justice system. So this book is a memoir about an attorney and his experiences with working with these cases of death row inmates. It's definitely more focused on wrongful convictions and the injustices in this system. I remember reading this and feeling like I gained such a new perspective on the way the criminal justice system in the US works. It really made me feel like I wanted to do something about it. I really went overboard with the amount of passages I highlighted, and I actually got to meet the author too. I'll put a picture up here somewhere. But yeah, this was definitely, it's super influential, and I still would recommend it to this day. My third book is Forgive Me, Leonard, Peacock. This is another book that I've read probably 3 times now, and I don't usually reread books, so that's how you know it's good. But it's definitely a heavy, angsty kind of YA book. It's about a kid who's just done with all the things in his life, and he's going to commit suicide, and he goes on this journey of giving people gifts right before he goes through with that. It's a very emotional story about feeling out of place and like you don't belong anywhere, and just really questioning what life is about. I've definitely read this at points in my life where I needed it, and it may not be for everyone, but it's definitely, again, one of those favorites that just stick with me. Book number 4 is another memoir. The title is actually a slur, and I kind of don't want to say it on my channel. You can see it here. I'll have it in my channel description. The little subtitle here is Confessions of Punk Rock's Most Infamous Anarchist Sellout. That's quite a mouthful. But anyway, this is the memoir of Laura Jane Grace from the band Against Me. It's a punk rock type band, and I've grown up listening to them. I think I found them in 8th grade. They were actually the first concert I ever went to. But the thing about Against Me is it's, again, this kind of punk rock band, and punk rock is kind of notorious for being very heterosexual and white and cisgender, and Laura Jane Grace is a transgender woman, and this is just her memoir of all the experiences she went through, not just for coming out and transitioning, but just everything with the band and the drugs and the controversy and all of that. And again, this is definitely not the kind of book for everyone, and I feel like it would definitely be more enjoyable if you know the music, but this music has been something that's been so important in my life. I've know all the albums, all the songs, I've seen them live twice, and reading this book was definitely an experience, to say the least. I read it during a very hard point in my life, senior year of high school, so this definitely was comforting in a way to me, even though it was just not very hopeful, I guess I could say. But yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite books, and I do plan to reread this in the near future. Book number 5 is the Lorien Legacy series by Pittacus Lore. First book is I'm Number 4. I actually think the first book is the worst book in the series, but these are all the books in the series, like starting over here all the way over here, including this one. So there's a lot. I did not want to choose one because, again, there's so many. So this one's just representing the whole series, but this has been my favorite series ever growing up. I definitely wouldn't say it's the best written series, but I love the characters. I've grown up just waiting for the new release. Every year I'd go to Barnes & Noble the day that the new book would be released. Just such a fond memory attached to this series. It's about aliens, I guess you could say. It's sci-fi, and again, definitely not the most carefully crafted series, but it just brings back so much nostalgia to me, and I do kind of want to attempt to reread every single one because there's a couple I still haven't gotten to. But yeah, this is one of my favorite childhood series. Book number 6, I considered not putting it on this list because it's The Maze Runner by James Dashner. James Dashner has been accused of some shady, not great stuff. You can look that up if you're interested. So I kind of didn't want to promote that. And also, looking back, this is not the most diverse, well-written book. I decided to leave this book in here because the author in this series really inspired me when I was about 12 or 13. It really got me into reading. I would say this series and the Lorien Legacy series back there are definitely the two series that got me into reading and just loving books and wanting to find them for myself. Number 7 on this list is The Catcher in the Rye. This is definitely the kind of book where you either hate it or love it. I happened to love it when I read it for the first time freshman year of high school. It's definitely a moody, broody, angsty kind of book, and that's why I loved it. I remember my class, everyone hating this book and complaining about the way Holden talked or what he would complain about or just anything about this book. But personally, I found myself to feel very seen in this book. Again, I would not say I am exactly Holden, and I have not made the choices he has made, but I did just like the way that mental health was represented in this book, and I just kind of liked reading about an unlikable character because, you know, sometimes we feel unlikable. Number 8 is Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. I've mentioned this many times on my channel, and I read this, I want to say May of this year. I don't know, sometime a few months ago, and I absolutely loved it. I really loved the representation in this book. The main character is bisexual and biracial, and I was like, that's cool. And there's so many different diverse characters in this book. It was the first time in a long time that I've read a book with such diversity, and I loved the setting. It felt like a very quiet kind of book, which I prefer, contemporary, which I like, and it had minimum romance, which I appreciated, and it's definitely a book that got me into the author's other works, and I just really liked it. For book number 9, I chose The House of Hades, but really this represents all of the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series and the Heroes of Olympus. I had to dismantle my stack of Heroes of Olympus books to get to this one, but the reason I specifically chose this one to represent all of those books is because Nico D'Angelo is my favorite character in these series. I actually started reading Percy Jackson because when I was like 12 or something, I saw fan art of Nico D'Angelo and I was like, who is this? I feel like this is me. And turns out his personality did feel a lot like me, but especially in this one, The House of Hades, I feel like Nico really got to shine, and his personality and his life story and his feelings and thoughts and all of that were really delved into, and yeah, he is my little bean, and this book made me very happy. For book number 10, I chose Letters to Montgomery Clift. This cover is not my favorite, but I really loved this book. I wrote an entire review on Goodreads if anyone is interested, but it's about a Filipino immigrant and he's sent to the United States after all this stuff happens with his family, and it's just a lot of sad things going on, but it really just stuck with me, and it was the first time in a very long time that I read a book about a Filipino person. Also, he's queer, which was cool, and so is the author, and I just really love this one. It barely has any ratings on Goodreads, so if you're looking for a book, I'm gonna point you to this one because it's so underrated in my opinion, like actually underrated, like it has barely any reviews on Goodreads. So I would definitely recommend you check this one out because it just meant a lot to me when I read it. Book 11 on this list is The Hate U Give. I'm choosing this one because I remember pre-ordering this book, reading it the day I got it, and it was just such an emotional journey for me, but most importantly, I feel like this book really reminded me what the power of young adult could be. I read it when I was in high school, and when I was in high school I was super insecure about reading this kind of genre age group of books because I felt like I should be reading older books or whatever, or more sophisticated books, and this, I remember reading it and I was like, oh yes, this is what YA can do. And the fact that it got so popular, and so did the movie, I even watched the movie in one of my classes, I just thought that was so powerful that a book that is meant for a younger audience could be so widely spread to so many other different groups beyond just the stereotypical group for young adults. Book 12 is The Secret History. I had to once again dismantle my bookshelf to get to it, but I really loved this when I read it. It took me like a month to read because it's just so dense. I thought this was interesting because the characters were not that likable. They did a lot of both immoral and illegal things, and sometimes the plot was a bit hard for me to keep up with, but overall I just really loved the atmosphere that Donna Tartt created, and towards the end, and like when I finished it, I could look back and realize how creative and well thought out this was. Also, a little bonus, I loved all the little Latin and Greek references in here. I've mentioned this before quite a few times, but I took Latin for about 5 years, so it was fun to have those little sentences in there and just to know what they were saying. But yeah, this is definitely a interesting, dark book that I really enjoyed. Book number 13 is Broken Things by Lauren Oliver. First, look at the cover. Oh, I love it so much. And also I'm very surprised that this book did not get very good ratings on Goodreads, but it is one of my all-time favorites. It's contemporary. It's about this murder mystery type thing between these 3 friends, and they have this own secret world imaginary thing, and it's just that was not a good description. It's much better to go into this not knowing what it's about. But I just remember reading this and thinking it portrayed toxic middle school friendships so well. And I know that's a weird thing to get excited over, but I feel like this is one of the only books I've read that really portray how friendships when you're younger can be very toxic and the kind of emotional effects that can have. Again, that's a very strange summary of this, but I really found myself in these characters. If you read this, you're gonna be like, what? Because these characters are not great, but I really love characters that can explore their faults and flaws and everything that's been wrong in their life. And overall, I just had a fun time reading it, and it's a thriller, and it definitely kept a great pace. And yeah, I ended up really enjoying this one. Book number 14 on this list is It's Kind of a Funny Story. I haven't read this in a really, really long time, so I'm not sure if I'd still like it now, but I remember reading this in, I think, middle school. It had to be middle school, and I was just reading it at a time in my life where I needed to read something like this. So yeah, this is the kind of book where it's my favorite in the sense that I just remember the feelings that came with it. I literally remember nothing of this book, and I think the movie was very mediocre. I loved the humor in this and the portrayal of mental health, and overall, again, I remember really liking it, but don't remember much about the plot. Number 15 on this list is Darius the Great Deserves Better. This is the second book in a 2-book series. I guess that's a duology maybe. But I loved this book. Again, it's about mental health and friendship and family and sexuality, all my favorite topics. I actually liked the second book a lot more than the first one. Loved the first one, but I just liked that in the second book, I felt like all of these topics were delved into so much more. And again, I really appreciated the mental health component of this book because it really looked into mental health with the main character, but also the importance of discussing this with others and not keeping it to yourself. And I just overall really thought the author did a good job handling all of these very sensitive themes. Number 16 is Punching the Air. I've read this book twice already, even though it just came out last month, but this book was so amazing to me. The audiobook narrator was fantastic, and the writing itself was obviously amazing, and it's definitely one of those books where you finish it and you're still thinking about it weeks and weeks later. Number 17 is Among the Hidden by Margaret Peterson Haddix. It's been so many years since I've read this. I don't remember what it's about. I don't know if I would still like it, but this was one of the books before even middle school. I was probably like 10 or 11. I read this and just totally fell in love with this book and this series. I ended up printing out a spreadsheet of this author's books, like every single book she had written, which are just dozens and dozens of books, and my goal at that time was to read every single book of hers. So yeah, that series, again, I don't remember much, but that author herself really inspired me to read so much. I just wanted to read all of her works, and at this point in my life, I cannot remember any of them, but I did try to read all of them. Number 18 is Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. I love Tiffany D. Jackson's work, and this book particularly, I read this like thinking so much that it felt just like a movie. The way she plots out her books and creates her characters and just structures the entire thing is so careful, and everything falls into place so neatly. And I read this entire book in like one sitting. Like, I did not move from the couch while I was reading this, and I was just so impressed with the way that this author was able to tell a story. I think that kind of storytelling method is super inspiring because I really struggle to put together stories, and I just love the way that Tiffany D. Jackson can so expertly convey so many ideas and themes and just make them all work. Number 19 is Felix Ever After. I loved this book. It's another YA contemporary romance type book, but I just loved the characters so much, and I love the representation in here. The plot was good, but overall, just like the vibes the characters were giving and all the messages that this book conveyed, I just loved it so much. I stayed up to like 5 or 6 in the morning reading this. Definitely kind of want to read it again, although it might be too soon because I just recently read this, but I still think it's one of my favorites because it's rare that I want to read a book that late into the night, okay? I like to sleep. And then lastly is Secrets for the Mad by Dodie Clark. This is a memoir by a YouTuber, Dodie, and I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. Another book that I wrote a really long review on Goodreads, but it just was interesting how many of her experiences and thoughts and feelings felt so personal to me. I've been watching her videos for many years, did not know that she had a book out, but it was so emotional, but like cute, but also heavy. I don't know. It was really great, and it really was appropriate at the time I was reading it for my own personal reasons. So yeah, that's definitely a book that has still stuck with me from the time I read it. And I guess that is it for me. Those were my 20 favorite books of all time. If you ask me my favorite books of all time in a few more days, I will probably change that list because that's just how it is sometimes. But hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. These are just